Therapy, that great and noble institution, the modern confessional booth where lovers, drenched in frustration, sit before a well-meaning adjudicator of the human heart, hoping, praying that the machinery of love, rusted and breaking, can somehow be salvaged. But my dear listener, allow me to paint a different picture, a tragic one, a predictable one. Because you see, when it comes to avoidant men, couples therapy is often not a sanctuary for healing, but a slow-rolling catastrophe, a death march toward an even colder distance. Indeed, the very act of therapy for such a man is a crucible too hot to bear. And yet, desperate lovers still believe, if I could just get him to sit down in that office, under the soft lighting, before the nodding sage with the clipboard. But what happens instead? He withdraws, hardens. He becomes not more connected, but less. And thus begins the cruel paradox. In the very act of trying to fix the relationship, the avoidant man drifts further away. So why? Why does couples therapy make avoidant men worse? Sit with me, if you will. Let us wander through the corridors of the avoidant mind. Let us unravel the secret mechanisms of his defenses, his reflexes, his quiet, unreachable sorrow. And if, by the end, you see him for what he truly is, not a cold and uncaring soul, but a man caught in a war between longing and fear, then perhaps you'll come to understand the bitter irony of therapy for him. Shall we? Now, before we pull apart therapy itself, we must first dissect the man who sits in that chair, the man who is there against his will. Because make no mistake, he does not want to be there. Not really. The avoidant man, you see, has spent a lifetime learning one fundamental lesson. Closeness is dangerous. He was not taught, as others were, that love is a sanctuary. Oh no. He learned, young and impressionable, that love is a liability, that attachment is a risk, that to need is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to court pain. Somewhere in the past, perhaps in childhood, perhaps in adolescence, he learned to fend for himself, to self-soothe, to rely on no one but his own wit and will, and he did so successfully. So what happens when years later love comes knocking? He wants it. He does, make no mistake. He craves it in the way a starving man craves food he dares not touch. But when intimacy becomes too much, when the demands of closeness press in, he recoils. He disappears. He becomes a ghost in his own relationship. And now, his partner, growing desperate, ushers him toward therapy. And therein lies the tragedy, because therapy is precisely what he cannot stomach. Imagine, if you will, a soldier who has spent years on a battlefield, dodging enemy fire, surviving by instinct alone. One day, he is ordered into a small room and told, "Now open up, speak your truth." To him, this is not healing. This is interrogation. The avoidant man steps into therapy and at once, his internal alarms scream, "Danger! Threat detected!" He sits down, his body rigid, and then the questions begin. Tell me how you feel. He does not know, not truly. He has spent a lifetime suppressing feelings. Why do you shut down? Because he must. Because to let someone in, fully, deeply, is to risk the devastation of loss. And then, oh then, the grandest horror of all. The therapist sides with his partner, not intentionally, of course, but naturally, because she, yes, she, is the one who feels, the one who needs, the one who wants to talk. And suddenly, he is on trial. This is the true nightmare of therapy for the avoidant man. It is not a conversation. It is an ambush. It is a slow, inevitable march toward guilt. His partner cries. She speaks of how neglected she feels, how cold he has been, how she is tired of feeling alone. The therapist nods, understands. She too has seen this before. The avoidant man is labeled, diagnosed. He must do more. He must show up. And the man shuts down. This precise moment is where therapy makes him worse, because now he does not feel safe. He does not feel seen. He feels condemned. And what does an avoidant man do when he feels condemned? He leaves. Perhaps not immediately, perhaps not even physically, but emotionally, he is gone, checked out, unreachable. And when the session ends, his partner believes they have made progress. They have not. She has merely driven him deeper into his own mind. Oh, but it gets worse. Because now that he has endured this ordeal, he must regain control. He may do this by pulling away harder than before, by retreating into work, into hobbies, into silence, or worse, by weaponizing his withdrawal. "You wanted me to open up," he says, voice heavy with disdain. "I did. Did it make you happy?" And she, oh, the poor soul, she does not understand. She only wanted to connect. She only wanted to feel close. But she has, unknowingly, done the very thing that terrifies him most. She has cornered him. So what then? Is all lost? Not necessarily. For the avoidant man, healing is not found in forced vulnerability. It is found in safety. And safety, my dear listener, is built in small, quiet moments. Not in a therapist's office, not in confrontation, but in trust. You see, the avoidant man can love deeply, but he must be given space to choose closeness, not be forced into it. He needs a partner who understands that pursuing him will only make him flee, that pressuring him into emotional displays will only make him retreat. Instead, he needs patience, consistency, moments where he is allowed to come forward on his terms, where he is not demanded to share, but invited. This, my dear listener, is the key. This is how an avoidant man learns love. And so, we return to our question: why does couples therapy make avoidant men worse? Because therapy is often not designed for him. It is designed for talkers, for expressors, for those who seek understanding through words. But the avoidant man, he does not live in words. He lives in action. He lives in distance, and he lives in control. And so, if you love such a man, if you cherish him despite his walls, do not force him into a chair and demand his heart. Instead, show him that he is safe. Let him come to you. And when he does, when he finally steps forward on his own, with his own quiet offering of love, take it, hold it, and do not ask for more. Not yet, not today. Because in time, if you do this right, he will give more. But only when he is ready, only when he trusts, and only when he knows that love at long last is safe.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.